Hello, everybody. Welcome to Soapbox Slam, where I get on my soapbox and I talk about the things that I see going on. Um, this is going to be a relatively, I'll try and keep this one short because it's a precursor to a more detailed soapbox that I will do and building right now, as far as to report on and share with you all. But I felt that it was important to go ahead and kind of make this a part one to maybe a 3-part series, or at least a 2-part series, where I talk about this. And I will continue to talk about this, not just because it's a political topic, but it's also a social topic that one segment of the and I want to stress, one segment of the Republican Party is beholden to, champion, and rallying behind and standing behind. So what I'm on my soapbox to talk about is Project 2025. Now, we've heard a lot of discussion about Project 2025. This is I call it a manifesto. This is a clear social contract. There's nothing in this that is aimed to make prosperity in America. There's no objective plan or policy that is set forth within this that is designed to enrich Americans or make Americans prosperous. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing. Project 2025, I call it a manifest, is a document. It's 902 pages document. Now, that's what it's total of 902 pages on the internet. I haven't purchased or received a copy, a hard copy, or a binded copy of the documents. I've just read the entire document online, and I haven't read the entire document, which is why I said I'm just building this, but I want to share this with you. Thus far, I've gotten to 130 pages so far. There are 902 pages in the document. It's created by the Project 2025 is a subsidiary of the Heritage Foundation, or the Heritage Institute. Let me make sure I have that note, so I'm properly citing what it is. It is created by a policy-making institute, a lobbying institute, right? A lobbying group in the United States, and it's called the Heritage Institute or the Heritage Foundation. There might be two very separate things, and I got to find in my notes the distinction between the two, or which one it specifically is. It's one or the other, the Heritage Institute or the Heritage Foundation. And this is a policy agenda group. This is a group, a kind of a nonprofit organization. It's a lobbying group. And what this group does is they try to create policies and send these policies to legislators for legislators to take up and mantle. Okay. The Heritage Foundation has been around since, I believe it was 1980 or late 1970s is when the institute or foundation was created. Okay. I just want to warn you that this same group, the Heritage Group, which, like I said, the Project 2025 is a subset of the Heritage Foundation or the Heritage Group Institute. It's a subset, a subsidiary of that. So each year or each project, they create a sister project underneath it's like an umbrella underneath the umbrella. And this is the mission. 2025, Project 2025 is a project that is put out or endorsed, funded, and supported by the Heritage Foundation or Heritage Institute. Okay. The interesting thing about it was the Heritage Institute Foundation was created in the 70s, and the first policy program that they wrote for a president was implemented by Ronald Reagan. So that was when they first was created, and the policies were implemented by Ronald Reagan. I want to point out that I have not read the documents of what they handed over to Ronald Reagan and what Ronald Reagan implemented. But what I will say is that everything that they put out, the Heritage Institute and Project 25, is 100% social. Everything that they put out, and I say everything, I have not completed the reading. There's 902 pages. I've gotten to 130. But I encourage all of you guys, you can download it. It's easily accessible on the internet. You can download their mission. You can download their program and read it for yourself. And I highly encourage you to do that, because see, the thing that sparked this for me is there's been so much discussion about this Project 2025. There's been congressional hearings about it. There's been people talking left and right over Project 2025, and most of the comments that have been made have been rather frightening as to what their mission is and what they're about. But and the reason why people are so frightened by it is because it is a social contract. This is an agenda. I guess it makes sense, being a heritage foundation. The Heritage Foundation would want to do all things to preserve what it deems as heritage, identifiable characteristics of an American identity and American heritage, right? So to have them put out such a document and lobby politicians, particularly conservative politicians, for this agenda, it makes sense, right? But it is 100%. 100% in the 130 pages I've read, but I know I haven't completed the whole document, but I get where they're going with all this. And it's all about social policies. It's all about social contracts. It's a social contract. It's about what social issues and the morale and values of social society, American society. There is nothing, absolutely nothing in it that is policy, economic agenda driven. Nothing. And so let me just make clear from the very beginning, I don't give two shits about this document. I don't support it. I don't support the document as a whole, but actually the most interesting thing about it is if you read through it, everything that they're discussing are topics that I think need to be evaluated, and I think a standard ought to be created for all of these topics. And it is a great template on social issues and a social contract. It is a great template to work from. And if you get your panties out of a bunch and stop being hypersensitive to everything and try to come at it from a negotiable standpoint, then it's not the most insidious document to be created. Now, having said that, there is a lot of questions within the documents that I've read of 130 pages that I do have a lot of questions about, and I challenge a lot about. And there's a lot of double standards within the documents, and I think that has a lot to do with undereducated writers. There are many editors and writers that are on it, and I think they're all very undereducated people. I hate to say that, but the standards of education have diminished significantly, and I am the first to admit I'm just a dumb nigga. I work a blue collar job. I am not the smartest person out there. I know that. I've been equipped with abilities to read and research and think on my own, but the most highbrow, sophisticated writing I've been exposed to, and I'm aware of it, and I can decipher it. And it would be a deciphering because it doesn't come easy for me to interpret a high standard of writing, that being legalese or legal documents, legal writing, or something like that. But I would say these standards, I am very familiar with what it is, and this is certainly not written in the most sophisticated form. So there are a lot of issues as far as execution and the quality of writing, not just grammar, punctuation, and syntax, but again, I use this word a lot, continuity, how it flows, and then within the continuity, when things don't make sense or something is double standard, or you say one thing but it's not backed up, then, and it hasn't been caught, then you kind of lose your argument or you lose your position because it doesn't, the sentences are contrary. And there are some examples of that, and I'm happy to present those examples. Or at least I'll present one at least to you. And it deals with their agenda or mission into administrative agencies and revamping or the control or the power of the presidency to override administrative agencies. And with these administrative agencies, if they do not execute the agenda of the president, then the president has the authority to eliminate that agency or the people in the agency. And that's a whole nother topic and everything else. And like I said, this is a great template for me personally, as a person who is a commentator, a social commentator, a content creator. It's a great template for me to dissect each chapter, each section, and get my own 2 cents about it. But I would encourage you guys to download the document and read the document for yourself. Like I said, it's not about economic policies. There's nothing, absolutely nothing in there addressing economic policies that would make Americans more prosperous. Everything that is in there is about social issues, and it's a social contract. And the apprehension that I have when you start getting into trying to establish morals and values in society is, who are the people who are setting the values and the morals? Why do they have autonomy and authority to determine what that value and morale ought to be? And this particular think tank group is hyper-conservative and evangelical. That is extremely prevalent in their writings and their own acknowledgement. They'll be the first to tell you that they're evangelical and highly conservative. Also, I would state that within the document itself, it states in the first 20 pages, in the first 10 pages, that this is a conservative agenda, but it's not the opinion of all conservatives. It's not the opinion of all Republicans, and it's not the opinion of all conservatives. This is a sect putting out an agenda for the conservative party. So you ought to be careful in labeling the entire conservative party or Republican party with this agenda, because it's not. This is a sect of that party that is putting out their agenda or their idea of what a social contract with the country ought to look like. And it's rooted in evangelical, and I refrain from using a term like bigotry, because I don't, in the readings that I read, the 130 pages that I read, I did not get the sense of rooted in bigotry. And the ironic thing about it is when you see on television and people talking about it, and you see bits and clips of the congressional hearings, you see some minority who's attacking the writers of it, and it presents in a way that suggests that this is something rooted in bigotry and rooted in hatred and everything else. And that's not 100% where I think it comes from. And I think I have a understanding of what's driving a lot of the people who have written this, what's driving them. And while I do think that there might be elements of bigotry in where they're positioning themselves, I don't think it's wholeheartedly a social contract or social agenda to whitenize America. I just don't get that feeling from the first 130 pages that I read. So again, I'm talking about Project 2025. It is something that you should download and read for yourself. It is a long read. It's over 900 pages. And I've only gotten to 130, but I thought that I should at least put this out there and start getting people out there, start talking about this, so that people have a perspective that isn't necessarily tainted by what media is saying, but encouraging people to kind of develop their own opinions about it. Let me just go through and talk about a lot of the topics that they talk about. I'm not going to defend or anything else, a lot of these social contract topics. I'm not going to go into those in details, because like I said, this is great material for me to do several discussions about. But I want you to understand why I say it's a social contract. It's more of a manifesto and a social contract than it is a policy agenda on economics that would make Americans prosperous, because that it is not. 100%. I will stress this to the nth degree. This document is not a document on policies or agenda to make Americans more prosperous. There is no economic policy or no economic agenda designed to make Americans prosperous in this project. It is 100% designed to be a social contract. It's 100% written about social issues in America that this particular group, the Heritage Foundation and the people who created Project 2025, have strong grievances in regards to where American society and social issues in America are today. And those things are worthy of that discussion and worthy of taking action upon. I think that the advantage so the solution to the problem I'll just put out there right now. The ultra-conservative evangelical people have written this. They spent a lot of time writing this and spent a lot of time putting this out there. I think that it would be to the advantage of a counter group, that being a liberal democratic group, to go through the documents, accept, acknowledge, and validate their position, identify what the liberal counter position is, and find the middle between the two. So that presents two opportunities here. One opportunity would be for the Democratic Party to move to the middle and come up with a common ground, or the other opportunity is for another organization to examine Project 25 position, interview and question what the Democratic hyper-liberal position is, and they themselves, the moderate group, come up with a happy medium. But again, this is all about social contracts. This is all about social issues and social problems, right? There is nothing in here about economic policy. There is nothing in here about making Americans prosperous. It's 100% social. It's 100% trying to identify exactly what the American society is supposed to look like. That's all it's about. In the documents, they talk about why I say it's a social contract. They talk about critical race theory and trying to eliminate critical race theory from education. They talk about the LGBTQAI plus agenda and how they want to combat the LGBTQAI plus agenda. They talk about DEI, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion agenda, and affirmative action agenda. They talk about that and how they want to dismantle those things. They also talk about family structure and what they want to do to redefine family structure. They also want to talk about how within the Black community, and they mentioned this in their writings, that they want to take out, anything that would eliminate the male father in the household, in a household that is receiving economic benefits, welfare or whatever else, right? So, but they do want to eliminate welfare. They talk about abortion and their position on abortion. They talk about welfare and subsidies. And now the only things that they do talk about, which gets into economic policy, but when I say they talk about it, we're talking less than a paragraph. This is a 900-page document, and they only spent they spent many paragraphs on LGBTQAI plus and all these other social issue contracts. They only spent one paragraph talking about taxation. They only spent one paragraph talking about immigration, and one paragraph talking about China and finance, and everything else. Now, those are all social issues to me. When it comes to the economic issues in this country and trying to develop a policy agenda for economic issues, those policies and agendas would be things like insurance policies, homeowners insurance, vehicle insurance policies in the United States of America, which in my opinion need tremendous reformation. And I have written and I have stated several times on several Soapbox slams on YouTube and on Facebook on how to reform insurance policies and the need for insurance reformation. And I'm 100% about an economic policy that would reform insurance, major insurance reform. Number two, because insurance is an indemnity. It's a way to hedge your asset, hedge the losses on your assets, period. It's not designed for insurance people to get rich. It's designed for you to hedge risk on your assets. It's all supposed to be for your advantage. And the way insurances work today, there's no policy out there other than some life insurance policies that are designed to make life advantageous to you. The rest has been for their pocketbooks. And should an emergency happen, then they have to come out of their insurance, pooled insurance to anyways. So economic policies that would make Americans more prosperous, and an agenda from an organization or an agenda through a foundation or a policy creating foundation would policies to affect economic prosperity in the United States of America would attack economic issues like insurance policies, tax policies, banking and financing policies, tariffs and competition with China, immigration, foreign policies, foreign policies, and the sorts. Now, those would all be economic policies, and anybody writing an agenda or policy that would address these things as a proposed way to fix prosperity and change the dynamic would be an economic agenda. And this Project 2025 is not that at all. 100% is not that at all. Okay, so when it comes to, and I'm going to wrap this up because, like I said, I'm going to do several posts about Project 25, but I did want to get this out there and start getting people thinking about it and talking about it and researching it on their own. I will say that the tone in which they want to correct and create a policy and agenda for and social issues isn't 100% horrible, because these problems that they are identifying are problems. And anyone who refuses to acknowledge them as problems, yes, we don't see eye to eye, but I think that if you refuse to acknowledge some of these issues as problems, I think you have a willful ignorance, and you're more rooted in your sensitivity than you are in. I feel like you are so concerned with just yourself that you're not concerned with what is the benefit for everybody. For example, so many people want to get their panties in a bunch about the LGBTQAI plus agenda, where in Tennessee, they created a law or policy, and it wasn't just drag. And they created a law or policy about nudity in public. Now, they've already have laws about nudity in public, but what made it specific to the LGBTQAI plus community is that we tend to find in a lot of drag shows and gay pride parades where children are exposed to overt sexuality, and children are exposed to overt nudity. And the irony of a gay pride parade or a public display of drag shows is, if you're doing this in a public sphere and you want people to accept pride and accept your existence, but you are forcing them to deal with overt sexual behaviors and overt nudity and everything else, well, in a public sphere, not a private, not the gay pride parade isn't private. It goes through the public streets. And the law was created to say that in these public streets, there will be absolutely no nudity when it comes to LGBTQAI plus or drag shows. Read the law. Just read the law. And that in itself, to me, isn't wrong. We have somehow, it has somehow become the norm that at gay pride parades, people are scantily dressed, if not dressed at all, parading themselves in the streets, but yet children and you're trying to teach people to have acceptance, are exposed to that element of homosexuality. And I think that's unreasonable. Not only do I think it's unreasonable, I think it's not only unreasonable and in your face, but now you are trying to obtain acceptance from a group of people who may be willing to go to a parade or may be willing to have acceptance for you, but you are blatantly spitting in their face and being vulgar, but yet playing the victim about hatred because certain people may not want to see your exposure. And so when a group of people in the Project 2025 come together and start writing ways to legislate things like what Tennessee did, people want to attack 2025, but they don't want to come to self-reflect about what it is that they're doing in society that is inappropriate. Being held accountable. That's what we mean by being held accountable. They want to point their finger and play victim and be the victim. All these groups, I mean, even DEI and critical race theory and affirmative action, people want to play the victim of these things and not acknowledge being held accountable for their actions and how something might have been designed. Gay pride might have been designed to inform people that we're here, we're queer, get used to it, and has morphed into something of a free-for-all sex show, and no pride in. I mean, to me, a wonderful pride parade, right, would be, and I'm gonna wrap this up, but a wonderful pride parade would be something like, police officers that are gay walking in pride, fully dressed and clothed, and they have elements of this, but when you talk about the majority of what's going on when you go to these parades, and if you see these parades, posts and pictures and everything else, it's not focused on these things. And it used to be, back in the days, it used to be, I mean, you saw the parents who support, the gay dads, gay families, adoptions, all these kind of inclusionary things, but the attendance and everything else has morphed into something that is not prideful. It is morphed into something, and an inability to acknowledge that and make a self-correction within that the LGBTQAI plus community and try to control that and just play the victim and think that everyone's out to attack them when people just want some reformation in the approach, to me is again playing the victim. And what 2025 is doing is now they're taking it hard. Now, this is where I have problems with. They're taking a hard evangelical approach to it. And I think that, like I said, you have this evangelical approach, you have the democratic approach, and the moderate needs to come in and create an organization that somehow says, you know what, we are going to legislate things like public nudity at gay pride events. We will regulate that. But we're not going to take gay events away. We're not going to take any of this type of stuff away. Where the evangelical pushes more towards taking it away. Things like abortion, the final. I mean, there are extremes that are coming out of this Project 2025. There are extremes. I mean, now that abortion has been turned over to the states, they want to make a nationalized ban, no-term abortions at all. And get nationalized. And again, to me, that is contrary to the very reason why Roe v. Wade fails in the first place and why it should be left up to the individual states. Now you want to take it away from the individual states and say, nationally, this is the way it ought to be. And I think that that's wrong. And that's the position of Project 2025. Again, I think that that's wrong, and I don't support that extremity. But I think that they are right and saying, or I think that the movement is right in saying, leave it up to the states, get the people responsible in their own states to speak up and legislate how they want to be regulated in their own states. And I think that that's important. When it comes to DEI and critical race theory, that's another topic that I want to talk about. And I've done a little bit of discussion about these things, but here again, they want to dismantle this type of stuff. And I understand why they might want to dismantle it, but there are reasons why I would not dismantle it as a social policy. And again, that's in one extreme, and that's what they put out. But the issue that I have, and I'm going to wrap this up, the issue that I have is that instead of the Democrats just trying to tear down what this agenda is, right? And it does have a lot of issues with it. But everything that they're trying to approach is not rooted in hatred. It's rooted in a love for the country and a desire for the country to change, to establish, I don't want to say change, to establish a respectable, identifiable morale and value system. And the only way that this is going to work is if the Democrats come up with an organization like the Heritage Foundation that puts out their project for the president, and then a moderate group takes both of those and finds out how to meet in the middle. That's the only way that works. One of the biggest ironies and hypocritical statements is the notion of the social economic agenda that should be set forth by the president. So this is one of the things. There's I need to go into great details because it's getting winded, but I want to go into great details. I challenge you to go and read it on your own, Project 2025, and decipher what they're trying to say. Like I said, it's not as wretched and horrible as these clips and everything else are. It is evangelical, and it is 100% a social contract. And before I go on, I don't want to, I have no desire to get into the social contract game. I have no desire to engage in social politics. Everything that I support and everything that I desire for this country, and desire to challenge people to think about, have nothing to do with social contracts and social issues. I don't want to play the social people game. We all, me included, but we all are horrible human beings. And we have yet to evolve and develop into something better. And all of our horrible characteristics as human beings are all rooted in social, tribal behavior issues. And I do not like that. The only thing that I support and the only thing that I want to discuss and talk about and attack and change is American prosperity, the economic agenda in this country, the economic prosperity in this country, the economic period, the economic agenda. I only care about the economics. I only care about prosperity. That's all I care about. I don't give two shits about anything else. I don't care who's fucking who. I don't care how dark or white you are. I don't care if you kill your baby and don't tell a man that you're killing your baby. I really don't care about all that shit. The reason why I don't care about all that shit is I'm too focused on trying to survive and make money. And so all of this social pulling that's aimed and designed to pit people against people, to me is futile. And not only is it futile, but it's childish, and it's the least of our concerns. And I would also argue that the only reason why this is so important and prevalent in our society is because we as Americans have continuously become less and less prosperous. And I believe that the more and more prosperous we are, the less likely we are to pay attention and be hypersensitive to social issues, because we just don't care. We're enjoying our prosperity. But because there is no prosperity in this country, and because prosperity is declining tremendously, because there's no middle class, it's just haves and haves nots, the majority of us who are in the middle class and lower class, who are all really just poor people, we're fighting amongst ourselves over these social issues. And this organization is preying on the social contract of these things, and not addressing what I think is the most important thing for anybody, any organization, and everything else in this country, is to address the economic policies and economic issues in this country. Insurance, banking and financing, taxation. These are the issues that are destroying prosperity in the United States of America. Tariffs, immigration, all of these are those issues. And to me, that ought to be addressed, and that ought to be the priority of every American, not the social contracts, not the social issues. They're irrelevant. And so that's what I wanted to get on my soapbox about. You know, I will say there are other elements of this 2025 project that is very alarming. They're they're really rooted in trying to change the checks and balance system in our legislative, executive, and judicial branches. There's a lot of material that's written in there that aims to adjust and change the dynamics on the checks and balances of that system. And I would argue, and I would say that alone is why I am reluctant, and I hold this comment, but I put this out there. I'm very reluctant to co-sign and endorse whatever agenda they have, even if it is an evangelical conservative one, because they are writing stuff that aims to tamper with constitutional republic inception. They are willing and wanting to adjust the executive branch power. They're willing and able to adjust legislative power, and they're really willing and able to adjust judicial power. And it's written in their manifesto. It's written in there. You can read it and dissect it for yourself. And a person who has read the Federalist Papers, a person who has read the enlightened development of this constitutional republic in 1776, what these men wrote and what their intentions were and everything else. I've read the Federalist Papers. I've read these things, and I read them constantly, and I go through them constantly to have a better understanding of what was driving these men to do this. I can tell you right now, that is the most dangerous element about what Project 2025 is doing, is because it aims to tamper with that. And unfortunately, what was rooted and why these men came together and developed what they developed in as far as the American Constitution in 1776 or prior to 1776 was rooted in enlightenment. It was rooted in the melding of colonization in different countries, kingdoms, literally kingdoms, coming together, them escaping those kingdoms and wanting to develop something unique and different from the kingdoms that they came from, right? So it was rooted in something enlightened. What Project 2025 is rooted in is nothing enlightened. It's rooted in social contracts and aiming to change government to execute their desire to change social contracts. That's what it's rooted in, and that's a dangerous game to play in. That is where you get into fascism, dictatorship, autocracies, and that design. That's the danger of that. So that's what I'm on my soapbox about. I challenge you guys to actually read Project 2025 yourself. And there's a lot to dissect on it, and this is just a precursor. So, hey, have a wonderful day. My lunch break is over. Y'all be safe and be kind to people.